Thank you very much for attending my PowerPoint presentation on Clinkz, a hero for Buddhists. Clinkz is a ranged agility core hero whose most iconic feature is that he gets a new ultimate every 18 months. If you had to boil down his gameplay into one single trait, it would be the fact that he can deal a ton of physical damage to one individual target at a time. Keep in mind that that refers to both heroes and towers, which makes him extremely good at pickoffs, team fights, split pushing, ganking, really anything you can think of, Clinkz can probably get it done. Combine that with the fact that his ultimate changes so often and he's a very transient hero. You take a break from the game, come back, and Clinkz is probably doing something different. In fact, if you were playing just a while ago, you'll remember that Clinkz was a fairly popular position 4, and if you loved and or hated that, you have the guy in the bottom middle of the screen to thank or hate for it. Shout out Gunner, please come back to Pro Dota. While single target physical damage is the most obvious trait of his kit, just looking at his abilities in a vacuum, he also has a ton of utility that doesn't really have much relation to that, and also his spells combine in really weird and awkward ways, in a way that really doesn't help his lack of a cohesive identity problem. If you had to compare him in a vacuum to another hero, Clinkz is sort of like a ranged Ricky, but with a ton more utility and not nearly as much late game damage potential. Still, he can get quite a bit done, and he's an excellent hero when it comes down to base racing. A lot of Dota heroes have one thing that they do better than every other hero in the game, but Clinkz just doesn't really have that at all. Yes, he can spawn skeleton archers to drown the fight in various units, but Venomancer and other heroes like Beastmaster are just straight up better at that. Yes, he can instantly kill creeps by using Death Pact, which can get on Beastmaster's nerves, but so can Crystal Maiden, and she can do it on a much less restrictive cooldown. He's great at hitting towers, and his invisibility lets him get close to them very quickly. Unfortunately, Nature's Prophet does both of those things even better and faster. For jump-scaring supports, you have Ricky. For ganking side lanes, you have Void, etc., etc. Clinkz can do all these things, but he can't do them quite as well as other heroes that he's competing for in terms of position. Also, his weird myriad mishmash ability pile makes him a lot easier to counter than some of these heroes. If you pick up a Blade Mail to counter him, it's not as easy for him to pick up a Satanic. If you grab an Orchid to prevent him from running away with Skeleton Walk, it's not as easy for him to pick up a Manta. Being so good at single target damage comes at the cost of making it difficult to farm items, and while your Aghanim Shard does give you a really good flash farming ability, you have to buy your farming item and it's restricted to after 15 minutes, so it's not nearly as convenient as it might sound. Now it's easy to see this as a downside, but honestly, I kinda see it as an upside. Because Clinkz can do so many different things at a mediocre degree, it's not a result of the hero's design deciding what he does. Instead, it's up to the player to pick which trait of Clinkz they want to go all in on and figuring out what items and ability leveling order they need in order to do it. This makes him a very fun hero to pick relatively early on in the phase. You don't need to ever 5th pick Clinkz, because regardless of what the enemy heroes are, you can find a playstyle that will help you win the game. If you're a big fan of experimenting with different item builds and you want to play a different hero every game while also hearing the exact same voice lines, Clinkz is probably the hero for you. Now, if you do decide to start playing Clinkz, there's a decent chance that your teammates will not remember what your ultimate is when you actually load into the game. So here's a quick reminder. Currently, Clinkz's ultimate is Skeleton Walk, the thing that makes him invisible, gives him bonus movement speed, and when he emerges from it, makes a couple of Skeleton Archer poopers. Before Skeleton Walk, it was Burning Army, which summoned 5 Skeleton Archer poopers in a line, and then before that, it was Death Pact. Valve keeps moving them around for some reason, I'm not entirely sure why. What's interesting about this is that he actually still has all 3 of these abilities, they're just not his ultimate anymore. Well, except for Skeleton Walk, of course, which, again, used to be a basic ability. Burning Army is now his Aghanim Scepter upgrade, and Death Pact is a basic ability that has 2 charges. It does basically the same thing, instantly kill a neutral creep or an enemy-controlled creep, and you gain some HP and damage. And if you go the one facet, you can actually use it to sort of flash step past people, which is pretty fun. The teleport is only situationally useful, but it can be really good for getting around while ganking a hero, because for some reason, outside of Skeleton Walk, this agility hero is slow as shit. Having a little bit of burst movement speed in your back pocket can help you secure ganks, pickoffs, even get closer to towers, and the HP and damage is nice too. Outside of that, the original abilities that he still has are Strafe, which increases attack speed and now attack range briefly, and Death Pact, which, as mentioned, eat a creep, get some bonuses. He also has Tar Bomb, which is a really weird point target, but it's actually an AoE slow that also buffs his damage and does a couple of other weird things. You can use it on towers, and you can use it to manipulate the aggro of the Skeleton Archers. So once again, a strangely large amount of utility in an ability that doesn't really make a lot of sense. However, it's the key reason he was able to be played as a position 4, so again, if you love it or hate it, you have Tar Bomb to thank. Now, this strange ability to fulfill a variety of different roles makes it actually really difficult for me to explain how to play Clinkz, because there's a ton of different item builds and goals that you can have in any individual game. I can tell you that between his 2 facets, both of them have their use cases. The first is Suppressive Fire, which makes it so that when you activate Strafe and hit heroes, they're now going to miss a good chunk of their attacks. The second is Engulfing Step, which gives you that cute little point target teleport ability. Both of them have their use cases. I think that Engulfing Step is more popular and has a slightly higher win rate, but honestly, there's a really good argument to use Strafe, especially if you're against other heroes that are like Clinkz, but better. After you hit them a few times with Strafe, they're now like Clinkz, but worse. Outside of that, whenever you're playing Clinkz, just itemize around whatever you want to do. If you really like the split push idea of the hero, you can go for Desolator and Assault Cuirass, run around with your Skelly Archers, throw tart bombs on towers, and nuke them incredibly quickly. If you really like the idea of picking off supports, you can grab a Daedalus and a Bloodthorn, jump scare them, maybe apply a Nullifier, kill them, and get out before their team can respond using the Skeleton Walk bonus movement speed. And if you really like the idea of turning Clinkz into some super hyper carry, you can buy the Shard, use that as a farming tool, and take Ancient stacks with shockingly high efficiency. No matter what you decide to do with Clinkz, you are eventually going to need to hit things with your right clicks. So Desolator and Dragonlance are the most obvious options. You're going to go that in pretty much any game. The fact that you do almost entirely physical damage makes Desolator a no-brainer. Dragonlance is because you actually have shockingly low movement speed, and your attack range isn't that good by default, so pick them up. Really, no matter what you're doing in the early to mid game, your goal is going to be finding supports that are farming creep waves alone, killing them, and then escaping with their golden XP in your back pockets. As long as you're able to do that, you can transition to doing whatever the hell else you want to do. Or just keep doing that the whole game, honestly. That can be effective too. Clinkz really just is whatever you decide to make of him, and I find that very interesting. It kind of goes against the idea of Dota heroes having very strict core identities, but I can see some upsides for it too. While I personally like it, I also think that Valve has done a really weird job of trying to adjust the hero over the years. Feel free to read about it here. Now, while there's an insane amount of versatility to what it's like to play as Clinkz and win the game, beating him is actually pretty straightforward. He relies on invisibility, straight up. The hero doesn't have a whole lot of tankiness, he needs to get around using Skeleton Walk, and when he's not in it, he moves slow as shit. So, if you're able to park down sentries, carry dust around you, maybe even pick up a gem on a tanky hero that he can't immediately burst, it's going to make playing against Clinkz a hell of a lot easier. You also have heroes that have natural counters to invisibility, like Slark if Clinkz is able to get low, or Slardar casting his ultimate, that'll help you keep track of him and chase him down. Just remember that he really likes that early game play pattern of finding a Dazzle or an Oracle, farming a creep wave alone, orchiding them and killing them. If you can use your supports as bait, killing Clinkz is going to be a lot easier. And since he doesn't farm that fast, if you can stop the snowball early, he's never going to get off the ground and do whatever the thing he wants to do is. Optimally, you'll never find out which flavor of Clinkz your opponent is trying to play as. As with many ranged agility carries, he's incredibly squishy for a very long time, so if you have any sources of consistent magic burst, that goes a long way towards dealing with him. Queen of Pain is also a very solid option. She can use Dagger to slow his movement speed when he enters Skeleton Walk and chase him down with Blink, and of course she does a ton of magic damage, which Clinkz cannot survive. Other than that, heroes that are naturally good against physical damage dealers, either illusion-based heroes like Phantom Lancer, heroes with super high armor like Morphling, or cheesy-based damage reduction heroes like Mars and Bristleback are excellent choices against Clinkz. If you can survive the initial burst from Clinkz and just let Strafe run out, it only lasts like 3.5 seconds, you're probably going to kill him on the crackback, assuming you brought dust. And you did bring dust, right? Lastly, for supports, just don't get hit. Mind your positioning, remember that there's a Clinkz on the map. If you haven't seen him for a while, assume that he's hiding behind every tree. Stay close to your cores, buy defensive items, stay alive. Again, just don't let the snowball get going. If Clinkz gets ahead, he's really difficult to stop. And, even if you kill him twice in a row, usually a death knell for most snowballing heroes, he can just switch to split pushing, in which case your towers cannot buy a Glimmer Cape, so good luck. In conclusion, Clinkz is a hero, and you can play him if you want. Valve will never stop fixing him, and if you ever decide that you don't like the current incarnation of Clinkz, just give it a few months and see what Valve did to mix him up next time. Peace on planet Earth.